The House began the week by honoring Indigenous people and tribes by hosting Sovereignty Day in the House chambers. Tribal leaders and guests spoke to members of the House about issues of interest to the tribal nations, pending legislation, government-to-government relations, working with the legislature, and sovereignty. Following Monday's House floor session, a joint meeting of the House and Senate Higher Education Committees endorsed candidates for 4 board positions to the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Recommended to have their name placed before a joint convention of the legislature are Janie Mayron, a retired United States Magistrate Judge from Minneapolis, Mike Kenyenya, student body president at the Duluth campus, and Mary Davenport, a Mankato resident with more than 35 years of higher education experience. 2 other candidates who were within 2 votes after multiple rounds of voting were both forwarded for an at-large seat. No date has been set for the joint convention. A candidate needs a majority vote of the 201-member legislature to be elected to a seat. On Tuesday, Governor Tim Walz released his 2020-21 biennial budget proposal. Calling it the budget for One Minnesota, Walz's $49.5 billion proposal would increase state spending by about 9% during the next biennium. Education, healthcare, and community prosperity are key targets for funding in the proposal, which also calls for a 20-cent gas tax increase.
This budget reflects the morals and values of the people of Minnesota. This is the budget that Minnesotans voted for in historic numbers in November.
House Speaker Melissa Hortman released a statement about the governor's budget proposal. Minnesotans value providing world-class educational opportunities for all our children, affordable and accessible health care, and greater economic security. Governor Walz's budget reflects these Minnesota values, and we share these goals. We will review the details of the governor's budget and the February economic forecast. Then we will begin to craft the House budget proposal over the next several weeks. Following the governor's budget release, Republican leaders criticized the plan during a media availability.
This will make Minnesota absolutely uncompetitive. This is not one Minnesota. This is one expensive Minnesota.
A bill that would require schools that participate in the National School Lunch Program to adopt, post, and adhere to a policy and provide meals in a respectful manner was held over Wednesday by the House Education Policy Committee for possible omnibus bill inclusion. House File 55 is sponsored by Representative Tony Jurgens. The proposal would reinforce existing law that prohibits schools from using demeaning practices to collect lunch debt.
My feeling is that while the school districts deserve to be paid for those lunch meals, that's a transaction that should be done between the school district and the parents and not the kids.
Jurgens initially brought forward the anti-lunch shaming proposal last year and has since worked with a variety of stakeholders who were concerned about restrictive language. This proposal allows districts to continue collection of unpaid debts. The House wrapped up the week by passing 4 bills off the House floor. House File 15, Representative Zach Stevenson's proposal, which would eliminate the marital exception in state law, passed by a 130-0 vote. Current law prevents prosecution for certain criminal sexual misconduct offenses by people cohabiting in an ongoing voluntary sexual relationship at the time of the alleged offense, or if the complainant is the actor's legal spouse.
Many of you will know that I'm a prosecutor for Hennepin County in my day job, and I can remember learning in law school the 17th century English common law principle that a husband could never be convicted of raping his wife because by consenting to marry, the wife hath given up herself to her husband. I'm sure that many of us, and hopefully all of us, feel that those words are repugnant. And it's time we reject them. It's time that our laws match our values.
A bill that would free up millions in federal grant funds targeted at protecting Minnesota's election systems from bad actors was passed by the House. Congress passed the grant funds as part of a larger appropriations bill in March 2018 in an effort to thwart future cyber attacks on election infrastructure. Minnesota was the only state that did not claim those grant dollars ahead of the 2018 election after former Governor Mark Dayton vetoed the appropriation as part of a larger bill. Secretary of State Steve Simon said the funds will be used on efforts to modernize, secure, and update Minnesota's statewide voter registration system. Not everyone was on board with the proposal.
Members, this is the bill. Give the money to the Secretary of State and let him spend it on whatever he wants. And then maybe we'll figure out afterwards, we'll go in with some forensic people and try to discover where the problems went wrong, like we have with the other hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayers' money.
Ultimately, House File 14 was approved by a 105 to 23 vote and now goes to the Senate. For more on what happened this past week at the House, check out our Session Daily coverage on the House website, www.house.mn/sessiondaily.